Hi guys, my name's Jonathan Taylor. I am the founder of Sedbergh Landscaping Company, which is based in Cumbria in northern England. A lot of us are still in lockdown right now, but there is still a heck of a lot that we can be getting on with in the garden for those of us that are lucky enough to have that, or on your windowsill or on your balcony. So today we are going to go through how to sow some seeds. So we're going to sow some chard seeds and some tomato seeds. And we're also going to look at how to transplant those seeds into 9 centimetre pots when they get too big. And I'm just going to go and run through some hints and tips along the way. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. Hi, so today we're going to be looking at how to sow some tomato seeds and how to sow some Swiss chard. So you can use any kind of vessel. I'm using a seed tray, which you can get from any well-known hardware stores, but you can use some Tupperwares. You can use even the casings or plastic casings that you get your donuts in. They act as very good propagators, so anything you can use, literally anything, as long as you've got some holes at the bottom for draining. So I'm going to use some peat-free compost from a well-known hardware supplier. You don't need to use seed compost. I've never used it. I think it's a bit of a rip-off. Just use any multi-purpose compost is good. Just make sure it's peat-free. So you want to fill up the container, the seed tray, just to kind of like get it a little bit level. Just kind of level to the eye. And so we're going to go and start to see how to sow tomato seeds first. So these are just well-known variety. These are money maker. You can get them pretty much anywhere. Gardener's Delight would also be good. They're very, very good varieties to grow, especially if you're a beginner. They're pretty much foolproof. So when you do these, make sure that you put them far enough apart. So make sure you use individual seeds. So the seeds are quite big, so you can use them individually, and just make sure they're far enough apart. And just remember, if you've not got a garden or you've got limited indoor or outdoor space, just remember how many seeds you're actually growing, because each of these seeds will go into a plant, and you can end up with 70 odd. And I think even for the average gardener with an average sized garden, you'd be hard pushed to grow 70 or 80 tomato plants, and you'd probably get pretty bored of the fruit. So again, just make sure they're pretty nicely spaced out. The trick with tomato seeds really is the temperature. So they generally tend to germinate at around 18 to 22 degrees Celsius. So if you've not got a greenhouse or a propagator, then put them on a window ledge, a sunny window ledge next to a heater. I use an old Aga, but you can use pretty much anything you want. So tomato seeds, they only need a very, very fine covering, and really, really fine covering. You do not want to bury them. So again, just a fine covering over the top. Just make sure there's no clumps when you're doing them, because the seedlings will find it a little bit hard to get through. So again, finely put it through. Now you can use anything to put them down. Again, probably a smaller seed tray would be better. I'm just using a 9 centimetre pot, it's just what I've got at hand. I'm just gently press the seeds in so they've got good contact with the soil. So that's your tomato seeds done. Now chard, this is Swiss chard. This is slightly different. So these seeds, again, a bit bigger. Now these seeds you really want to put around about 2.5 centimetres or 1 inch into the compost. Again, you don't need to, if you've got a garden or anything, I'd advise you to actually sow them direct into the soil. But to be honest with you, they're just as good and they're fine with transplanting. So just make sure, again, 2.5 centimetres, so it's approximately up to your first knuckle, your first joint, sorry. Again, just space them apart. You don't need to use all the seeds in the packet. New seeds are good for at least a year if you keep them in a paper bag. So again, just put them up to your first intersection, like that. Again, making sure that they're far enough, spaced far enough apart so that they don't compete with each other, and you don't need to go through that agonizing time of thinning the weak ones out, which I hate to do and I really don't like doing.
So again, I've only used around 16 or so seeds, and these Swiss chard, this is red magic, so it can also be used as an ornament. It's got beautiful red stems, and you can harvest them year in year, basically 12 months of the year, especially if you live down south. They're pretty hardy, so that's what you do. You don't need a single tray for each particular seed. So you can either do two ways of watering. You can either put this in a bath, so basically your bath or your sink, and put some water in between, put it in the water, and the water will soak up into the dry compost. Now you can do that, and you can also use a rose butt to just make sure it's fine. Do not use a watering can without that, because it will displace the seeds. So it needs to be rather fine. So as you can see, just give them a very good water, and pop this on a warm windowsill, or if you're lucky enough to have one, a greenhouse, and within around about 2 weeks you should be seeing the first germination of the seeds. So that's how to sow seeds. This is how to transplant them. Now these tomato seeds were sown in April time, so that's really at the back end of the season. You really should be sowing tomato seeds for outdoor use in March, mid-March, but we have to make do. And these are also, so the ones on the right are a little bit past the stage of transplanting, but that's fine. These are what you're really kind of going for when they develop their first set of leaves. That's when you want to transplant them, but it really doesn't matter at the end of the day. The most important thing to remember is never ever, when you're transplanting any seedlings, never grab them by the stem. Often when you grab them by the stem, it constricts the plant and it just smashes the delicate stem. So you always lift them by their leaf. I generally tend to use the seed pod, so the first leaf, not the true leaf. So I fill 9 centimeter pots or whatever you've got to hand with some compost, half fill them, and I use knife and spoon. These are far better, I think, than the kind of the seed dibbers that you can get from the stores. And you want to very gently lift them out of the container, so it's got a good root. Again, holding them by the stem, they're strong, they can handle it. And again, loosely put the soil around the edge of the pot. Now the other important thing to remember is when you're transplanting some plants, like bigger plants, you're going to firm them in. Don't do this with these, because again, you've got they're delicate stems, and if you press down, it will actually probably damage the stem. So just leave that as it is, and I'll just show you how to do one of the ones that you're actually supposed to be doing. So these are actually yellow stuffer tomatoes, so they're good for roasting, and they're pretty good outside. Again, we're in Cumbria, the season's a lot shorter for us, but they do pretty well here. We've had them going for a couple of years and they do absolutely fine, and they really do bolt, really do start to put on a massive amount of growth when you put them in to their individual pots. The important thing to remember is, so some people, right from the tray, they will bury them up to the first leaf. Now I don't do that, because I think the stem's still a bit weak. I wait until these are about this size, and when they're about that size, when you're planting them into their final place, whether that's a grow bag or in the ground, plant them right up to the first set of leaves that you see. And what that does basically is it will change the cell structure of the stem, so the stem cells will go into root cells and they'll become a lot deeper. Now tomato plants are very, very, very greedy, so they need a high potash feed, and basically tomato feed that you can get in the stores, or which I use, is literally just a organic seaweed fertilizer, and you dilute that in water. And I generally tend to do it every 10 days or so, because they are very greedy plants, and they do need to be fruiting and stuff. So again, this is how they really get firmed in. Just give them a really good water. Now the logic with tomato seeds, now a lot of plants, you generally tend to water them little, very infrequently, but then deeply. Now tomato plants, I find, like little and often the entire time, so they do need a lot of good water on a regular period. They are very greedy plants. So that's how you do sowing the seeds, and that's how you do transplanting. So I hope that was sort of useful. Let me know what you think. See ya.